there was a kid at our school who came to school with a copy of Clockwork Orange, the book, and I think he'd been given it to read, you know, as a sort of sixth form project. And we all knew that it was something, you know, subversive and dark, because we all knew there was a film of it that we weren't allowed to see. And the cover of the book at that point had a cartoon image of a face with a clockwork eye, very much like the Malcolm McDowell eye makeup, but inspired by it. And I just remember the guy reading that thing on the coach and thinking, this is something very, very dark and very subversive, but I don't know anything about it. But it was, even then, we knew it was forbidden.
There's a kind of an official canon of books about teenagers, which is the most obvious one being Catcher in the Rye, that you'll get kind of given to read at school. And that's superficially about kind of teenage rebellion. And yes, it's a great book, but what you really want to read, I think, at that age is something that you'd never get given at school. And the thing that you'll get passed among your mates under the desk is Clockwork Orange.
Anthony Burgess had a most peculiar attitude to A Clockwork Orange. He had written it. He had written it out of himself and out of a very unpleasant incident that had happened to one of his previous wives, involving rape.
So this act of violence, in a way, had a huge effect on Burgess's married life, and I think it was that gratuitous act of violence that was at the back of writing Clockwork Orange.
The book was written, I think, in a state of catharsis. I must get it down on paper and nail my demons to the page.
He had been told that he had a brain tumour that couldn't be operated on, and he sat down and wrote and wrote and wrote, and he wrote, I think, about 5 books, or the drafts of 5 books, in a year, one of which was A Clockwork Orange. And it has that tremendous sense of momentum, that it was written in one go.
It is not a typical book. It's a book which deals with violence, especially juvenile violence, and it is fairly graphic, and it was made into a film by Stanley J. Kubrick.
Burgess himself was always irritated by the disproportionate attention that he felt the work drew. He didn't regard it as one of his major pieces of literature, but it is an extraordinary example of his linguistic brilliance in the way he casually almost invents this language, this blend of Russian and English slang.
Yarbles! Great bolshy yard blockos to you!
Yarbles, testicles.
You learn a new language in the course of the book. And for Burgess to know that that was feasible and that people would want to do that, would be drawn into the book enough to want to learn the language, is I think, the sort of real achievement of his career.
The language which Burgess saw as really being the prime reason for writing the book, which he rather felt was missing from the film. In fact, I think he was wrong. I think his language enhances it considerably.
Happy Polly Lodges. I had something of a pain in the Gulliver, so I had to sleep.
I didn't see it when I was growing up. I saw it a hell of a lot later on. But I remember kind of wanting to see it because I wasn't allowed to see it. There was like things on TV and you couldn't see them. There was a kind of a mystery about it.
The first time I ever actually saw the film was in the early 1980s. I went to somebody's house and they just got one of the very first video recorders, which at that point was like the size of a small settee. And the first thing that happened was somebody turned up with a pirate copy of Clockwork Orange. And of course, by that point, I mean, I knew the book really well, I knew the music really well, I'd seen the stills on the back of the album, I'd read all the scare stories about how it was this terrible thing. Finally, you were going to get to see it. What we actually saw was a very fudgy, fifth-generation, almost entirely orange copy of the video with, I think, Japanese or German subtitles. And even in that terribly degraded state, it seemed to be something exceptional.
I bought it under the counter at my local video store that just happened to have a notice that said, you know, Clockwork Orange available through us, and you know, you sent off to Paris, and it came through in a brown envelope, and it felt vaguely illegal and illicit.
It was like this banned film that you couldn't see, and it's like you know, someone's got a copy of it and you go to someone's house and you watch it on video and it's like, oh wow, have you got a Clockwork Orange, and go see it.